In a peaceful city, a massive kaiju wreaks havoc, prompting the defense force to intervene. The 3rd Division engages the kaiju with powerful weapons, and a girl defeats it using a cannon. Afterwards, Kafka assists in cleaning up the aftermath and collects a sample of the kaiju. An accident occurs during the cleanup, highlighting the risks of their job. Kafka feels pressured to work quickly. Unexpectedly, Kafka learns he'll be transferred to a different job due to staffing shortages. The next day, he meets Ichikawa, who aspires to join the defense force. Ichikawa questions why Kafka gave up on his dream, frustrating Kafka, but prompting him to assist Ichikawa during their work. As they finish cleaning up for the day, Kafka is surprised when Ichikawa thanks him. He's even more surprised by Ichikawa's gratitude. When Ichikawa mentions the defense force's age limit, Kafka feels sad. Ichikawa tells Kafka he can quit if he wants, but Kafka appreciates Ichikawa's understanding. Kafka realizes Ichikawa is kinder than he thought. Their conversation is cut short when a Yoju monster attacks. Kafka saves Ichikawa from the monster just in time and urges him to run for help, knowing Ichikawa's dream of joining the defense force can't happen if he's injured. Reluctantly, Ichikawa leaves as Kafka leads the monster away. Kafka thinks of his friend Mina and their dream of joining the defense force, feeling distant from it now. He tries to fight the monster but gets hurt. Ichikawa saves him, making Kafka first angry but then grateful. Remembering his past failures, Kafka feels bad about him and gets angry as Ichikawa is in danger. Suddenly, Mina and her team arrive to help. Mina assists Kafka, who feels alone but happy to see Ichikawa. Ichikawa praises Kafka's bravery, and Kafka thanks him for his honesty. However, another monster appears, causing fear. Ichikawa is surprised, and Kafka tries to calm him. An old man arrives, asking for the defense force, frightening Kafka and Ichikawa. Thinking of Mina, Kafka knows he must fight the monsters. Meanwhile, Mina prepares to protect the city from a monster at the hospital. We see that Mina teases Kafka playfully, leaving him embarrassed and secretive. But Mina surprises him with gratitude, emphasizing their unity. Amid preparations to fight the kaiju, a citywide alarm causes panic. An old man fears Kafka, prompting Ichikawa's suggestion of a smile, which backfires. While helping the old man, Kafka accidentally causes damage and shocks himself. Ichikawa assures them of defense force help. Kafka's attempts to flee result in chaos and uncontrolled transformations. Despite concerns, Ichikawa emphasizes focusing on immediate danger. Kafka envisions fighting alongside Mina, but resolves to stand by her, revealing his human face. The defense force arrives, surprised by the destroyed kaiju, as Mina comforts a frightened girl. Concerns arise about the kaiju that saved the girl's mother. 3 months later, news arrives naming the kaiju, Kaiju number 8. While Kafka's friends assume its demise, Ichikawa ponders Kafka's escape and the ongoing search. Their boss interrupts with mail, celebrating Ichikawa's success in the first round of defense force tests. Ichikawa checks Kafka's results, finding good news and hurrying off happily. Recognizing this as Kafka's last chance to join the defense force, their friends celebrate. Ichikawa excitedly tells Kafka of his success, but is dismayed to find him in kaiju form. Kafka reverts back, unaware of his transformation. Ichikawa warns him about TV coverage and advises caution. They return to the hospital and create alibis. Despite Ichikawa's expectation of Kafka's happiness, Kafka reveals his ongoing failure in the second round. Ichikawa worries about Kafka's transformation, but Kafka insists on taking the tests, determined by his age and hard work. Ichikawa agrees to support him. As they prepare, Ichikawa informs them of approaching cleaners. Relieved by his success, Kafka gets ready for the next tests. 10 days later, at the Defense Force's base, they encounter soldiers from the Self-Defense Force. Kafka, eager to check in early, gets into a disagreement with Kikoru, a girl who surprises them with her strength and kaiju sensing abilities, much to Ichikawa's surprise. Ichikawa details their kaiju extermination team. Kikoru marvels at Kafka's strength, suspecting a supersuit. Kafka, as examinee 2032, introduces himself dramatically, but is upset over a parking spot. Initially finding the exam boring, Kikoru now aims to outdo Kafka. Ichikawa scolds Kafka for premature power use. Kafka vows not to use them again to impress Mina. Despite training, Kafka struggles in the exam near the bottom. Kikoru mocks his score, leading Kafka to regret his boasting. Kafka believes he should have used his powers, but Ichikawa disagrees. Mina surprises her helper with broader interests than just kaiju. Izumo stands out for his promise, with Ichikawa ranking him second. Kagari leads the list, highly regarded in the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force. Many applicants are from top universities, possibly explaining Kafka's struggles. Kikuro shines as the greatest prodigy, admired by the top contenders. Despite doubts, Kafka vows to surpass Kikuro. Vice Captain Hoshina surprises Kafka by revealing they must not just exterminate, but also stop the kaiju in the next exam phase. During the exam, a formidable kaiju attack is thwarted, prompting excitement among the top contenders. Equipped with Zumo tech suits made from kaiju materials, they undergo testing, with impressive results for some. Kikuro surprises everyone with a score of 46%, while Kafka's remains at 0, causing concern. Despite doubts, the final exam stage begins, involving combat against kaiju in an urban setting, with high stakes and intense danger. During the exam, candidates face a kaiju attack, showcasing Zumo tech suit's effectiveness. Kikuro's 46% score contrasts with Kafka's 0, raising concern. In the final stage, combat against kaiju begins. Kikuro's swift defeat impresses, while Kafka struggles. Encouraged by Kafka, they assist others, with Kafka guiding Izumo to victory. Kafka regrets undermining himself. Later, Kafka shares his kaiju experience to improve. However, gravely injured by a kaiju, he fails the exam. Despite this, Kafka's determination surprises everyone, including Mina. Kafka persists in the test despite a broken leg. Hoshina allows him to continue, warning he might need protection. Kafka suggests Ichikawa go alone, but Ichikawa refuses, carrying Kafka on his back. Shinomiya defeats the kaiju alone, including the tough Hanju. People admire Shinomiya's skill, but Kafka feels frustrated by her speed. They all agree survival is crucial. Hoshina praises Shinomiya and reveals she is the director's daughter. With the drones off, they start helping the injured candidates when something strange interrupts them. Suddenly, a new kaiju appears, attacking Shinomiya fiercely and leaving her badly injured. Surprisingly, the defeated kaiju begin to revive. Ichikawa urgently urges Kafka to flee. Despite her injuries, Shinomiya remains resilient, shielding her heart to survive. The new kaiju tries to communicate with Shinomiya, indicating a significant threat. Despite Shinomiya's efforts to fight back, the kaiju continues to harm her, causing numerous injuries. Meanwhile, Hoshina detects abnormalities in Shinomiya's vital signs and starts investigating. Sadly, the defeated kaiju start coming back to life. They quickly activate shields to protect everyone, and drones are sent out to record the situation. Mina calls for help from Hoshina to address the danger. Despite the evacuation order, Shinomiya courageously battles the kaiju, but sustains serious injuries. Her fight is captured on camera, alerting Mina and Hoshina to the danger. Despite a broken arm, Shinomiya persists. Meanwhile, another threat looms, and Kafka, who can transform into a kaiju, shields Shinomiya and defeats the creatures. He asks her to keep his secret and praises her bravery. However, Ichikawa interrupts their conversation, reprimanding Kafka. They find Shinomiya unconscious and injured from the battle. The second-in-command arrives to find none of the main individuals present. They discover 3 returning to base, but Hoshina suspects Shinomiya was not involved in the battle, given a past incident. Hoshina senses a connection between the 2 events. Meanwhile, Kafka and Ichikawa are praised for protecting Shinomiya. Shinomiya surprises Hoshina by revealing her victory against the Hanju. After swiftly defeating the kaiju, Kafka anxiously awaits his test results. Feeling uncertain and blaming Ichikawa for pushing him, he nervously anticipates the verdict. Successful candidates, including Ichikawa, gather in the defense office. Izumo talks with Kaguragi, not surprised by the success, but noticing Kafka's absence. Group asks about Kafka, but before Izumo can respond, Shinya enters and receives praise. They discuss their shared challenge. Meanwhile, Ichikawa meets Iharu. Mina arrives and asks Shinomiya to speak for the candidates. Shinomiya receives a certificate but feels unhappy, knowing she did not defeat the threats alone, and wondering why Kafka is not recognized for saving her. Suddenly, Kafka appears, bringing relief and joy, especially to Shinomiya. In a flashback, defense officers discuss Kafka's failure, but Mina defends him. Hoshina interrupts, showing mixed feelings about Kafka. Despite initial doubts, Hoshina acknowledges Kafka's altruism and approves him as a cadet. In the present, Mina motivates recruits, but Kafka interrupts confidently, addressing her by her first name. Mina reprimands Kafka with 100 push-ups for speaking out. Hoshina finds it amusing, hinting at a deeper relationship between Mina and him. Mina leaves, surprising Hoshina with her smile, suggesting a complex bond. Hoshina lets Kafka pass the test due to suspicions about his mysterious nature. Kafka confides in Shinomiya, promising not to harm him. They train as defense officers, striving to surpass their own records. Kafka shares his progress proudly, amusing Shinomiya. They bond after training, while Shinomiya admires Mina's strength. Shinomiya learns Mina's routine. The group discusses their motivations, with Mina as a common influence. Kafka surprises them with a childhood promise to Mina. Later, the team trains intensely, catching Hoshina's attention. Hoshina speculates Kafka's motivation, surprising him. Kafka expresses his desire to stand by Mina, upsetting Hoshina. Before they can discuss further, the alarm signals their first mission. In the operation room, Mina asks Okanogi for an update on the Sagamihara location. Okanogi briefs Mina on the situation, including the evacuation of civilians, the deployment of the JSDF, and the latest developments with the Hanju and Yoju creatures. Mina then discusses the problematic Hanju with Hoshina, suggesting they defeat the Hanju in Sector Bravo to avoid further conflict. She expresses confidence in her ability to take down the Hanju herself, and assigns the sniper team to eliminate enemies who are positioned along Highway 16. Meanwhile, Hoshina gathers Kafka and the other new recruits, instructing them to prepare for their first official kaiju hunting mission. He emphasizes the importance of teamwork and staying alert. Kafka and his team eventually arrive at Sector E, where Kafka is shocked by the enormous size of the Hanju, a creature even bigger and more terrifying than he imagined. As they gear up for battle, Hoshina updates several groups on the Hanju and its Yoju offspring, outlining their strategy to neutralize these threats. The tension builds as everyone readies themselves for the imminent confrontation. Kafka wants to make sure every group completes their task, understands what they're facing, and gives their best effort. He gathers all the team leaders for a final briefing, emphasizing the importance of teamwork and communication. Reno, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement, calls Kafka for reassurance. Kafka admits he's feeling the same way, but encourages Reno by reminding him of their training and preparation. Reno hopes they can achieve successful results and make a difference. Kafka's team then moves to their assigned location to confront the Yoju, carefully strategizing their approach. Meanwhile, Mina and her team prepare for their part of the mission, checking their equipment and running through their plan one last time. Kikoru steps up and defeats most of the Yoju with impressive speed and precision, drawing admiration from her co-workers, including Kafka, who is in awe of her skills. Reno's team also performs exceptionally well against their Yoju enemies. Reno, using his strategic round switching, impresses his rival Iharu, who reluctantly acknowledges Reno's improvement. Despite their success, Reno feels he's not strong enough yet and expresses his desire to become even stronger so Kafka doesn't have to rely on transforming. He vows to keep pushing himself to ensure their team can handle any challenge that comes their way. Meanwhile, the new recruits in Sector J are doing a great job against the Yoju monsters. The experienced soldiers, including their leader Nakanoshima, are really impressed by how well the recruits are performing. Nakanoshima even mentions that some of the recruits look quite charming. She believes that the veterans are inspiring the new recruits to do their best this year. Nakanoshima notices one recruit in particular showing great courage and skill, which makes her hopeful for the future of their team. At the same time, Okanogi updates everyone on how other sectors are doing, showing maps and data on their progress. This makes Kafka feel confused and upset about his own efforts, as he wonders if he's contributing enough to the team. Wanting to help, Kafka goes to one of the defeated Yoju and finds its core, a glowing, pulsating organ that seems to control the beast. He quickly calls Hoshina and shares important information about the Yoju's core, explaining its structure and weak points. Kafka also suggests that the weaker officers attack the Yoju from the sides, where the armor is thinner, and destroy the Yoju's rear organs to stop them from producing more monsters. Hoshina praises Kafka for his smart thinking and tells Okanogi to share Kafka's advice with everyone. He instructs the teams to adjust their strategies based on Kafka's insights, hoping it will turn the tide of the battle. The other officers, hearing Kafka's plan, feel a renewed sense of hope and determination, ready to take on the Yoju with their new tactics. Kafka updated Hoshina on his strategy to target the defeated Yoju cores for eradication. Meanwhile, Mina unleashed her formidable weapon at the Hanju, prompting Hoshina to direct Kafka's attention to her prowess. With remarkable precision, Mina brought down the Hanju in just 3 shots, earning admiration from all who witnessed her skill on the battlefield. Despite the Hanju already crashing to the ground, she fired another round, displaying her determination. Drawing closer to Kafka, Hoshina demonstrated his exceptional close-range combat skills, by swiftly dispatching a nearby Yoju. He then shared a glimpse of his family's illustrious lineage as Kaiju slayers, emphasizing the traditions and honor that came with their role in the Defense Corps. He explained how the captain and vice captain received specially tailored weapons suited to their distinct fighting styles, urging Kafka to stay vigilant and prepare for what lies ahead. Despite the visible fatigue among the recruits, acknowledged by Okanogi, Hoshina remained resolute that overcoming this challenge would propel them to greater heights. He expressed confidence in Rino and Kikoru's potential to ascend to leadership roles within the Corps someday. Later, Iharu and Rino stumbled upon a worker from Monster Sweeper Inc. unexpectedly on the battlefield. The worker, visibly agitated, confessed to implanting reproductive organs in the Yoju and expressed anger over their destruction. Confronting Iharu and Rino, he demanded to know who among them had uncovered his covert actions within the defense force. The man stood up and pointed his finger menacingly at Iharu. Rino shouted for Iharu to move, but he wasn't fast enough. The finger bullet pierced Iharu's chest, narrowly missing his heart but causing severe bleeding. Rino tried to keep Iharu calm while using his suit to staunch the bleeding. They realized the attacker was a humanoid kaiju, possibly Kaiju number 9, known for defeating Kakuro effortlessly in the exam. Kaiju number 9 expressed disappointment over failed implants but insisted on taking a live sample of a Defense Force officer. Despite their fear, Rino tried to alert their platoon leader for backup, but the signal failed. Kaiju number 9 had created a zone blocking all communications, keeping himself hidden and preventing distress calls. He then targeted Rino with another finger bullet. Despite knowing the attack was coming, Rino couldn't dodge completely and was incapacitated. Kaiju number 9, puzzled that Rino survived, realized Rino could somehow predict his attacks. Back when Kafka and Rino met Hoshina at the diner, she had warned them about Kaiju number 9's abilities. The finger bullet seemed like magic. Careful observation of his fingers could predict when he would fire. Eventually, Rino learned to dodge the bullet successfully. Iharu was shocked to see Rino effortlessly dodge such a quick attack. With the time Rino bought him, he managed to fire back at number 9, allowing Iharu a narrow window to escape. Despite his reluctance to rely on Rino's protection, Iharu knew he wasn't much help in the fight. After saving him from another near miss, Rino pleaded once more for Iharu to leave. Finally grasping the gravity of the situation, Iharu reluctantly began to retreat. Meanwhile, Rino stood alone against number 9, displaying bravery but knowing victory was unlikely. Inspired by Kafka's sacrifice for him, Rino fought on, hoping to buy enough time for Iharu to safely withdraw. As Iharu retreated, he struggled to come to terms with Rino's superior strength. Despite his determination to improve, Iharu felt frustrated by his stagnant combat abilities, stuck at a mere 20% despite his efforts. While Rino continued to distract number 9 in their intense battle, the kaiju deftly dodged every shot and suddenly closed in on Rino, launching a devastating attack in the blink of an eye. Despite Rino's partial knowledge of number 9, the kaiju exploited his remaining uncertainties. As the dust settled from the attack, it seemed Rino might have met his end. Just then, Iharu returned just in time, driven by a newfound determination to save Rino, despite his own injuries preventing him from overexerting himself. Rino couldn't understand why Iharu would risk returning to such danger, but he knew that Iharu's timely intervention had saved his life. Number 9's barrier makes it impossible for anything to leave without his permission, so Iharu wouldn't have been able to escape. Their only option now is to unite and confront number 9 together. However, Iharu's current injury limits his ability to contribute actively. He pledges to create an opportunity for Rino, who agrees to strike number 9 with full force. Rino charges ahead while Iharu provides covering fire from a crouched position. The bullets they use are special conductor variants designed to restrain number 9 effectively. However, number 9 sees Iharu as a significant threat and targets him first. Although Iharu struggles to evade due to his injuries, he manages to anticipate the attacks with focused determination, learning to dodge effectively. While 9 was still perplexed about why his shot had missed, Iharu managed to strike him in the leg with conductor bullets, creating the perfect opening for Rino to maneuver into position. Activating his suit's maximum output, Rino unloaded his entire gun's magazine on 9. However, when the dust settled, he was horrified to discover that not a single bullet had connected. 9 had built a protective wall of corpses around himself, leaving Rino defenseless once he ran out of bullets. Seizing the opportunity, 9 retaliated with finger bullets, incapacitating Rino. Meanwhile, outside the barrier, Hoshina received the alarming news that communication with Iharu and Reno had been lost, along with their vital signs. This raised concerns among the team. Kafka, hearing the report and observing the unusual behavior of the kaiju in the vicinity, realized that Kaiju number 9 must be nearby, posing a significant threat. After enduring a barrage of bullets, Reno's body burns with pain, yet he grits his teeth, determined to remain conscious and keep fighting. Number 9, surprised by Reno's resilience despite the damage, hesitates, intent on keeping Reno alive as a test subject rather than killing him outright. Despite Iharu's desperate attempts to protect his friend by firing several rounds, 9 effortlessly deflects each bullet with newfound ease. With Iharu incapacitated, 9 turns back to Reno, methodically firing more shots to gauge his limits. Iharu, anguished at seeing Reno suffer, recognizes Reno's superior skill, but finds himself powerless without ammunition. As despair sets in, Iharu resigns himself to his fate, knowing he can't save Reno alone. Desperate, he reaches out, hoping against hope for Reno's survival. 9, shifting his focus to Iharu, prepares to deal with the last obstacle in his way. After successfully immobilizing Reno, Kaiju number 9 no longer saw a need to keep Iharu alive. He aimed his finger to finish him off, but just as he was about to strike, Kafka suddenly appeared behind Kaiju number 9. With a swift punch, Kafka cleanly separated 9's head from its body. Kafka then knelt beside Reno, apologizing for his tardiness. Reno, however, blamed himself for his perceived weakness, wishing he could have handled the situation alone to prevent Kafka from transforming. Iharu, witnessing this chaos, began to panic. From his perspective, a second formidable kaiju had emerged, yet he remained powerless to intervene. After discovering that number 9 can survive decapitation, Kafka sets Reno down, anticipating a violent confrontation. Despite Reno's concerns for Kafka's safety, Kafka insists he'll handle number 9 while Reno focuses on sealing his wound with the suit to prevent bleeding out. As 9 reattaches his head, he questions Kafka's sudden attack, acknowledging Kafka's strength and expressing a desire to claim his opponent's body. 9 attempts to shoot Kafka with body-sized bullets, enraged by Kafka's interference with Reno and Iharu. Kafka, furious at 9's callous use of these bullets, stands firm against the onslaught. As the bullets approach, Kafka releases a shockwave to deflect them, swiftly counterattacking with a barrage of devastating punches. 9 struggles to defend himself against Kafka's relentless assault, realizing retreat is his best option. Refusing to let 9 escape, Kafka delivers a punishing blow that sends 9 crashing through buildings, leaving him disfigured and defenseless. As Kafka prepares to deliver a final, crushing blow to 9's exposed core, Defense Force soldiers suddenly appear, reporting the sighting of another humanoid kaiju. Meanwhile, Kikoru struggled to defeat one of the remaining kaiju from earlier. Her gun lacked the power to harm it, so she grabbed a nearby sign and used it to split the kaiju in half. With the immediate threat dispatched, she pondered Kafka's whereabouts. Earlier, after learning that Iharu and Reno had gone missing, Kafka had set out to find them. Kikoru wondered how he planned to do so without any means of communication. Kafka assured her that they could sense the humanoid kaiju attacking them, transforming and leaping away to rescue Reno. However, transforming in the midst of an active Defense Force battle zone was incredibly risky. News of the humanoid kaiju attack reached Hoshina, prompting him to mobilize and offer support. Back with Kafka, he was momentarily distracted by the officers, allowing number 9 to regenerate his body and narrowly escape death. Claiming to understand Kafka's anatomy now, 9 vows to ensure Kafka doesn't survive their next encounter. Determined to prevent any future threats, Kafka prepares to pursue 9, but 9 unexpectedly opens fire on Defense Force officers. Kafka is compelled to defend them, giving 9 the chance to disintegrate and flee. With 9 gone, Kafka decides it's his cue to leave too. He punches the ground, creating a diversion, and leaps into the air to make his escape. Though disappointed he couldn't eliminate 9, Kafka finds solace in having saved Reno and Iharu from certain death. Just when he thinks he's safe, Vice Captain Hoshina confronts him, blaming Kafka for injuring Reno and Iharu. Filled with rage, Hoshina unleashes his combat power to 92%, determined to bring down Kafka, the Kaiju number 8. Hoshina engaged in a fierce battle with Kafka, whose admiration for Hoshina's exceptional fighting skills was evident. Meanwhile, Hoshina couldn't shake the feeling that Kafka seemed unusually affected by the fight. Unaware that Kafka is actually Kaiju number 8, Hoshina questioned why the battle seemed to bother Kafka so much. During their intense confrontation, Hoshina's relentless attacks pushed Kafka to his limits. Just as Kafka managed to deflect Hoshina's final strike and escape, Hoshina felt a sense of urgency to understand Kafka's motives. Later, Hoshina hurriedly reported to Mina and the team about Kaiju number 8's escape. Meanwhile, Kafka regrouped with Kikoru, but the toll of the battle soon caught up with him, causing him to collapse from exhaustion. Apologizing for letting Kaiju number 9 escape, Kafka was reassured by Kikoru, who urged him to prioritize his own well-being and recovery. Soon after, Mina, concerned about the recent events, confronted Hoshina to gather more details about his encounter with Kaiju number 8. Hoshina argued that this kaiju resembled a daikaiju, but he suspected it wasn't as bloodthirsty as others. Mina assured him they could deal with it later, urging focus on their current situation. Just then, Ikaruga called them urgently, revealing that the kaiju who had attacked Iharu and Reno was none other than the humanoid Kaiju number 9 from their selection exam. Ikaruga added that Kaiju number 9 could take on a human form, a fact that unsettled them. Meanwhile, Kaiju number 9 was spotted wandering on a highway, where he encountered a bystander who confronted him. In a shocking turn, Kaiju number 9 devoured the man, stole his vehicle, and drove away. He listened to a news broadcast detailing his exploits, including his codename, Kaiju no 9. Despite the attention, Kaiju number 9's primary concern remained how to defeat Kaiju number 8, showing a surprising level of strategic thinking. He decided to lay low in an abandoned warehouse to acclimate to his new human form, grappling with unfamiliar sensations and memories. Elsewhere, Kafka, Iharu, Reno, and Kikoru discussed the ongoing battle between Kaiju number 9 and Kaiju number 8, sharing insights and planning their next move. Later that evening, Iharu and Reno attended a celebration among Defense Force troops, marking their successful mission against the kaiju. Kafka found himself bewildered by the lavish spread organized by Haruichi, who had enlisted many renowned chefs to prepare high-class meals for the occasion, emphasizing the camaraderie and appreciation within their ranks. Kikoru informs Kafka that Haruichi is the heir to Izumo Technologies, the largest manufacturer of anti-kaiju weapons. The evening begins with Hoshina starting the party, where everyone enjoys drinks and socializes. Hoshina assigns Reno the task of observing everyone present. Feeling the weight of their underwhelming progress in their first mission, Hoshina acknowledges the team's dissatisfaction and encourages them to strive for improvement. Reno realizes he's not alone in his disappointment and starts to feel better about himself. Amidst the playful banter among the group, Haruichi strikes up a conversation with Dojima, one of the head chefs, discussing both Haruichi's father and the specially prepared meal for the occasion. Later, Hoshina announces to Kafka that he's being promoted to an officer role in the Defense Force, recognizing Kafka's outstanding performance during their first mission. Everyone congratulates Kafka on his well-deserved promotion. Meanwhile, Haruichi's friend expresses his determination to ensure no one in their group comes to harm. Towards the end of the evening, Kafka visits Mina, who officially promotes him to the rank of officer, solidifying his new role within the team. Mina reminded Kafka that fulfilling his promise would take time. Determined, Kafka assured her he would keep his word. Later, Mina informed Kafka about an important HQ meeting to discuss Kaiju no 8 and 9. She asked Kafka to handle paperwork with Hoshina while she was away, hoping he could meet Hoshina's expectations. While researching in the library, Kafka noticed Hoshina training in a nearby area. Hoshina saw Kafka and mentioned he was devising a strategy to defeat Kaiju no 8 in their next encounter. Kafka promised to assist Hoshina to the best of his ability, but Hoshina teased him for it. Soon after, several wyvern-like kaiju appeared in the sky, led by a new humanoid kaiju commanding them to land on the ground. Hoshina was deep in research on Kaiju number 8, reflecting on everything he knew about it, while thoughts of Kaiju number 9 lingered in his mind. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Kafka, determined not to disappoint Hoshina. Just as Kafka headed to his bedroom to rest, the tranquil moment was shattered by the sudden impact of several meteors, crashing down on multiple Defense Force bases. Okanogi swiftly relayed this critical information to Hoshina. Instantly, Hoshina geared up and mobilized all available troops, urging them to man their battle stations. His strategy was clear: lure any approaching kaiju or hanju away from the bases and towards the designated training area, minimizing damage. Amidst the chaos of battle, Kafka managed to call Hoshina. An observation struck him as odd. Wyvern-type kaiju typically operated solo in their universe, yet here they were, moving in packs under mysterious direction. Hoshina pivoted, catching sight of an unknown figure orchestrating the wyverns towards an undisclosed objective. Okanogi's voice cuts through the tension, alerting Hoshina to the presence of a Daikaiju-level threat. Without hesitation, Hoshina instructed Ikaruga to focus on combating any Yoju that emerged amidst the unfolding turmoil. Before Hoshina could explain his plan, the Daikaiju suddenly attacked him. While Hoshina engaged in a fierce battle with the Kaiju, Kafka directed Reno and the rest to target the wyverns' vulnerable spots on their backs. Their efforts were met with difficulty due to the wyvern's sturdy armor. Just as things seemed dire, Koru arrived wielding her massive battle axe. With a mighty swing, she shattered one wyvern's armor to pieces, exposing its vulnerable core. The scene then shifted to a flashback inside the base's underground weapon storage room. Hoshina and Mina stood before Kikoru, presenting her with the battle axe specially designed to match her formidable combat abilities. Given the surge in kaiju activity this year, Mina explained, we've decided to equip you with this weapon, despite it usually being reserved for captains. You've earned it as the base's third highest-ranking Defense Force officer. With a solemn nod, Mina handed the battle axe to Kikoru, officially recognizing her as the third strongest officer in the Defense Force after herself and Hoshina. Kikoru relentlessly slashes through the wyverns with her battle axe, leaving a trail of defeated foes in her wake. Unexpectedly, a wyvern lunges at her from the side, but Reno swiftly intervenes, shielding her from harm. Grateful for his timely assistance, Kikoru nods to Reno, acknowledging his support, and suggests they team up to take down the remaining wyverns. Witnessing their comrades' bravery, the rest of the group finds renewed determination. Inspired by Kikoru and Reno's courage, they redouble their efforts in the battle. Meanwhile, Hoshina leads the monstrous Kaiju into a specially prepared training area. The creature relishes the challenge, eyeing Hoshina hungrily, eager to consume him and grow stronger. Despite the danger, Hoshina reassures Okanogi that he's prepared to face the Kaiju head-on. As the intense battle unfolds, Kafka swoops in to save a Defense Force member named Minas from a wyvern's deadly strike. Soon after, Kikoru and Reno join the fray, confronting the wyvern and urging Kafka to prioritize evacuating the wounded. Back at the command center, Okanogi updates Kafka and the team on the escalating situation. Senior officers are now actively engaging in combat, each reporting their progress. Determined to contribute, Kafka and Minas resolve to assist the injured while keeping an eye on the evolving battlefield dynamics. Meanwhile, Hoshina continues his relentless duel with the Kaiju in the training grounds, impressing the creature with his skill and resilience. However, the situation takes a dire turn when the Kaiju undergoes a dramatic transformation, growing larger and emitting a lethal toxin. To Hoshina's surprise, he manages to shield himself from the toxin using a mask he had prepared. As the Kaiju evolves into a more formidable form, Okanogi alerts Hoshina to its increased fortitude, now rated at a dangerous 9.0. The sentient Kaiju, known as Kaiju number 10, continues to battle fiercely against Hoshina. Hoshina pushes himself to his limits, unleashing all his power, but Kaiju number 10 proves too strong, overpowering him. In a brief flashback, Hoshina remembers a moment when a man advised him against joining the Defense Force. In the present, Hoshina communicates through a device with his ally, assuring them he can still fight. Internally, Hoshina realizes he has reached his maximum potential and struggles to find a way to defeat Kaiju number 10. As he wanders, Okanogi updates him on the ongoing battlefield situation. Despite his disadvantages, Hoshina continues his valiant fight against Kaiju number 10. More flashbacks reveal Hoshina's struggles with the same man who doubted his abilities, repeatedly discouraging him due to his lack of proficiency with guns in the age of Kaiju. These memories precede his recruitment into the Defense Force. Unexpectedly, Mina approaches Hoshina and invites him to join the Defense Force, citing her own shortcomings with swords and expressing her faith in his skills for future battles. Encouraged by this memory, Hoshina gives his all in the present battle against Kaiju number 10. However, Kaiju number 10 continues to overwhelm Hoshina, prompting Kafka to rush to his aid. Before Kafka can intervene, Mina arrives and joins the fray against Kaiju number 10. During her battle, Okanogi guides Mina, revealing the location of Kaiju number 10's vulnerable core. During the intense battle against Kaiju number 10, Hoshina steps in to assist Mina by targeting the monster's ligaments. Moments later, Kikoru joins Hoshina to lend her support. However, Kikoru reaches her limit, prompting others to jump in and bolster Mina and Hoshina's efforts. Together, they unleash a devastating 96% combat power attack, securing victory for their team. After the battle, the group regroups. Okanogi advises Mina and the others to head back to base for some much-needed rest. Meanwhile, other troops express their intent to eliminate the remaining Yoju. Before they can act, Kafka and his companions notice something ominous hovering above them. Okanogi informs them that the Yoju are converging to form a Yoju-themed bomb. With no other choice, Kafka transforms into Kaiju number 8 and rushes forward. Despite reflecting on the gravity of his actions, he's determined to face the consequences later. Kafka leaps into the air, intercepting and propelling the Yoju bomb skyward. As it detonates, the explosion clears a small portion of the battlefield. Kafka, now back in human form, stands amidst the aftermath as Mina and her troops approach. Pointing a gun at Kafka, Mina declares her intention to take him into custody. After some time, Kaiju, the deputy director of the defense force, engages in a conversation about Kafka with other staff members. They brainstorm various ways to utilize Kafka's Kaiju DNA. However, Isao, the director general, and Kikoru's father, insists on having Kafka handed over to the 3rd Division. Soon after, these men observe Kafka through a glass barrier. Currently imprisoned, Kafka reflects on Kikoru's warning about the defense force's intention to weaponize his Kaiju No. 8 components. As Mina, Hoshina, and troops arrive to transport Kafka to headquarters, he spots his friends on the sidelines, wondering if this marks the end for him. Just before boarding the aircraft, Reno steps out to reassure Kafka that he believes Kafka will return to fight alongside them. As the aircraft doors close, Kafka finds himself alone with Mina, who informs him that they are not being filmed and shares her frank assessment of Kafka's actions during the Kaiju No. 10 incident. Furthermore, Mina reveals she's gathering evidence to prove Kafka's humanity in hopes of saving him, emphasizing that no one in the 3rd Division views him negatively. She directs Kafka to a specific seat and informs him of his transfer to the Ariake Maritime Base. Kafka interrupts, asking if he can still stand by her side, to which Mina affirms. Following their departure, Kafka is confined at the Ariake Maritime Base. Days pass, during which Iharu and others reflect on Kafka's predicament. While some allies wish to rescue him, another informs them that the Neutralization Bureau will decide Kafka's fate. Meanwhile, Hoshina discusses with another ally his desire to bring Kafka back for a rematch. Later, Kikoru visits Isao and pleads with him not to eliminate Kafka. Isao shows Kikoru Kafka's chest X-ray, revealing a growing core similar to those of other kaiju. Isao argues that Kafka is a kaiju, reminding Kikoru of how a kaiju killed her mother. Despite this, Kikoru expresses her belief in Kafka before leaving. As Kafka undergoes more tests, Reno and others update Mina. She informs them of their temporary transfer to different divisions due to the extensive damage caused by the numbered Kaiju's rampage at Tachikawa Base. Mina explains that this plan was in motion before Kafka's identity as Kaiju No. 8 was exposed, to which Reno reluctantly complies. Later, Aoi meets Haruichi on a rooftop and discusses his efforts to find help for Kafka, emphasizing his determination not to lose anyone, especially Kafka. Meanwhile, Isao meets Kafka and instructs a worker to release him. Unexpectedly, Isao shoots Kafka and retrieves some of his blood before asserting that Kafka will always be a kaiju in his eyes. Kafka stands defiantly, proclaiming he's not a kaiju. Isao's men outfit Kafka with 2 mechanical arms crafted from Kaiju No. 2's remains, leading to a confrontation. During the battle, Kafka partially transforms into a kaiju to defend himself against Isao. Meanwhile, Keiji shares insights with Kikoru about Kaiju No. 2's history and its transformation into weapons, which only Isao can wield. As Isao prepares to deliver a fatal blow, Kafka fully transforms but realizes he's no longer in control. The small kaiju that infected him communicates with Kafka, demanding he kill Isao. Despite Kikoru's pleas for Kafka to prove his humanity, Kafka charges toward Isao, setting the stage for a critical confrontation. The scene shifts to Reno and Iharu training in their base's gym. Reno expresses his determination to become stronger so he can protect Kafka when he returns. This motivates Iharu to push himself harder. Suddenly, the platoon leaders arrive, informing them that Kafka's fate will be decided today by the higher-ups. They also share news that Mina has been summoned to the Ariake Maritime Base and might bring back important updates. Meanwhile, Mina arrives at a conference room where she learns that Isao is examining Kafka elsewhere. She's instructed to wait until Isao completes his task, reminding her she's there only as an observer. Back to the fight between Kafka and Isao. Kafka struggles to calm down Kaiju No. 8, which has taken control of their body. Despite this, Kafka manages to showcase new abilities to hold his own against Isao, who continues to use weapons from Kaiju No. 2. Keiji informs Kikoru that Isao could have easily killed Kafka before, but chose not to as he wanted to test both Kafka and Kaiju No. 8. Switching to Aoi and Haruichi on the rooftop, Aoi explains to Haruichi his reason for joining the defense force, to save lives, and how Kafka unexpectedly saved his life. Haruichi is conflicted, but Aoi urges him to judge Kafka by his actions rather than his origins as a kaiju. As they talk, Haruichi notices a missed call from his father. Haruichi eventually agrees with Aoi's perspective on Kafka. Meanwhile, the brawl between Kafka and Isao intensifies, leading to Kafka severely injuring Isao. Keiji notes that Kaiju No. 8's resilience is increasing. Concerned he might harm Isao in front of Kikoru, Kafka struggles to resist Kaiju No. 8's influence. Just before Kaiju number 8 can fatally strike Isao, Kafka sees a mirage of Mina inside Kaiju number 8, encouraging him to regain control. He manages to assert himself and stop short of killing Isao, affirming his identity as Kafka Hibino, not just Kaiju number 8. Later, Kafka collapses, but Isao intervenes before Narumi can attack him. Isao calls for medical assistance and directs them to handle Kaiju number 8's remains, noting its core is only slightly damaged. Isao, Keiji, and Mina convene in a conference room where Mina reveals she knew Kafka before he joined the defense force, but insists she treated him like any other recruit. The higher-ups inform Mina that Kafka's fate won't be swayed by personal testimony, leaving it to specialists to determine if Kafka is human or Kaiju. Despite some skepticism, Isao thanks Mina for her input and asks her to return to her duties. As Isao prepares to announce Kafka's fate as Kaiju number 8, Kafka finds himself floating in a watery tube reflecting on his mission to avenge Mina's suffering caused by Kaiju. He wakes up in a hospital bed with Isao nearby, who reassures him of his safety. Kafka asks if he'll be reinstated in the defense force, but Isao explains the council views him as a Kaiju, although they're willing to let him fight alongside them for now. In a separate meeting, Isao convinces his colleagues to accept Kafka's help despite their reservations, arguing that Kafka's unique abilities as Kaiju number 8 could prove invaluable. Meanwhile, Mina receives a reassuring text and leaves the base with a smile, while Kikoru vows to become stronger in case Kafka loses control again. Oi, Iharu, Reno, and others also receive the message about Kafka's condition. While Kafka rests, the focus shifts to the Monster Sweeper Inc. headquarters. Several workers express frustration as they struggle in a chess match against an opponent known as Number 9. We then see Kaiju number 9, deep in thought about his recent victories over humans in chess. He believes he is nearing a level of intellectual parity with humanity. Furthermore, he has uncovered strategic details around the Defense Force's main base and is eager to advance he and his allies' next phase of their plan. Kaiju number 9 is determined to retrieve Kaiju number 8 from the humans, claiming that this particular Kaiju belongs to them. With this, Season 1 of Kaiju number 8 concludes.